This is an extended version of an interview with Humanware from episode number 75 of our Talking Technology podcast. For more assistive technology content, subscribe to Talking Technology with VI Labs wherever you get your podcasts, or subscribe to VI Labs right here on YouTube.
This is a Talking Technology podcast clip.
And now on Talking Technology, I am delighted to be joined by Andrew Flatres, who is a Braille product manager at Humanware. Andrew, how are things?
Hi, David. Thank you ever so much for inviting me. Great to be here.
Brilliant stuff. And Andrew, I suppose Humanware does a ton of stuff in the Braille space. And I guess the reason we're here today is to talk about one of your newer products, though, which is the Monarch. So I suppose let's start at the beginning. It's a good place to start, as they say. What is the Monarch?
Sure. Okay, well, before going into the Monarch, I'll just give you the reasons why we want to introduce Monarch. And that's really important from a product manager's point of view. You know, we want to create products for a reason, to break down barriers. So I'm sure many of you that are in kind of education, for sure, they're students, receive materials rather late, certainly later than their sighted classmates. This is quite normal behavior when we're looking at today's classroom, where it takes a long time to create textbooks, production of all their curriculum and tactile graphics, and it's increasingly expensive as well to create all of that from a production point of view. There's also the limitation of tactile graphic access. On average, we'd say about a student would see probably 25 tactile graphics a year, which isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things. Certainly when there's a lot of information that's being portrayed over graphics and images. And then there's the lack of spatial understanding or formatting in documents. For 50 years this year, 50 years today, Braille or refreshable Braille has always just been on that single line display. And so getting across spatial understanding is very, very difficult. And then the last part was more about impromptu learning options. So again, think of yourselves when you are in a school situation and you want to know, well, what if I change this X value to something else? What will happen to the graph? So something like that is not really possible. And a lot of teachers have to adapt. And I envy a lot of the TVIs where they have to think outside the box, trying to get wiki sticks, trying to use tools that are around them to create graphics on demand, because of the situation that they're in, where the teachers may have changed the subject and they need to prepare something quickly in advance. So these are the many reasons why Monarch was introduced. Now, what is Monarch? Monarch is a dynamic tactile device. It's the size of a 15-inch gaming laptop, weighing about 4.5 pounds. And it's a connected tablet with a tactile array consisting of equidistant pins. So it's different technology than what you're used to on that single line display. It can display 10 lines of 32 Braille characters wide. It has touch sensor capabilities. So we can do all kinds of touch manipulations, has audio and video output, text to speech, has an all-day battery life, and it has a Braille keyboard for the creativity piece. So you can create a lot of documents, you can create a lot of math work. You can then, of course, access tactile graphics on demand through a online tactile library, and the list goes on. There's a lot that the Monarch can do, and it's a first of its kind. And we're pleased to announce that it was launched back in September of 2024.
Fantastic stuff. So I suppose then, if we start with that very concept of tactile graphics as such. So I, for context, I learned, grade 2 Braille when I was in school, and I never had, that kind of experience, though, of tactile graphics. So what is the difference between, a standard kind of, Braille alphabet using your 6 dots with tactile graphics? How do those differ, and what are the advantages? You mentioned maths there in particular.
Yeah, well, maths. We'll take maths as a first example. So, creating maths like your algebras. How would you then produce a graph that represents those formulas? Today a lot of schools they would produce the wiki sticks and the bump-ons, which of course, when you start using those, they fall off at the end, and I'm sure that's happened to everyone. And I'm sure you don't want to be doing that when you're 25 years old in university, is doing lovely pictures of wiki sticks and bump-ons, right? So it's really important that we make sure that what you're doing is understood, and of course then is passed on to teachers to mark your work, because not many teachers would mark the tactile wiki sticks and bump-ons and things like that. They'll just say, oh, fantastic, great, and they'll leave that to one side.
Yeah.
Or the bump-ons have fallen off, and so they just assume that they've understood. So that's really important aspect. When we're looking at maths on the Monarch, you can create those graphics on demand, and you can actually convert them from tactile graphics to print as well. So when we look at diversity, you can certainly, you as the user can fill the graph itself, understand where the coordinates are, where it's at X and Y values, because of the touch gestures. So you can point in various different areas of the graph and you can get those coordinates. But then also, once you're happy with that graph, you can then export that into a printed way. So then you can attach that to your document and for a sighted peer to review your document.
So does the device have a visual screen, or is it just Braille? Could a sighted, teacher walk, say, next to a visually impaired or blind student and be able to see what they're working on in real time, or how does that kind of work?
Sure. So there isn't a screen attached, like the Braille Note Touch, for example, where there is a screen. But what you can do with the Monarch is you can attach a monitor. So we do have a HDMI port that you can plug in a monitor of some kind, or an LCD screen, which comes included with the Monarch, and then you'll have your real-time output. So a teacher could easily kind of just walk past and see exactly what the student's doing in real time.
Very cool, very cool. And I suppose, how are you finding people using it initially? It's been on the market the first kind of couple of months now. How is it being received?
So Monarch has actually, although it's been out from 2024 September, we've done a lot of focus groups, we've done a lot of field testing with our equal investor partners, American Printing House. So in the American Printing House, they've been introducing Monarch for probably over a year now. So it's in the hands of probably over 250 or so students and teachers, and that's expanding just through some additional funding there. But the results that we've had has been fantastic, certainly from the maths point of view, and even from the tactile graphics. There's a story. I met a young lad who never saw a lot of tactile graphics, and he got so excited about the fact that you could now just explore whatever graphic you want using the American Printing House's online library that's attached to the Monarch. So he could explore whatever tactile graphic he wants to find. So he was trying to find a tractor, a car, and then he wanted to find out, well, what does a Mercedes car look like, to see if there's any differentiators there. So he really allowed him to explore more graphics, and that again was one of the main reasons why Monarch was introduced, to really explore more tactile graphics, because we know that's a challenge in itself today.
So, Andrew, how portable is the device? Like, can someone, let's say, if we're using it for a student, can the student, easily, bring the device home, or is it designed to be stationary? What's the kind of portability of the device like?
So, firstly, it is definitely run by batteries. So the battery autonomy is, I have to say, is fantastic. It probably lasts coming up to 2 days. We've been really impressed with the battery autonomy.
That's superb.
It comes with the carry and the weight. It weighs 4.5 pounds. It's the size of a 15-inch gaming laptop, so it should fit in a rucksack that can fit a 15-inch laptop. It's designed to move from class to class, right? So it's definitely not going to be a device that will always just be a desktop, but it's certainly a device that a student can carry from class to class. And I would say, in comparison to those having textbooks, this is definitely a lot lighter. So you haven't got to carry your full algebra textbook on a trolley. You can
Yeah.
put this in your bag.
For sure. That can be a painful experience that I'm sure many of our listeners know well. Is it robust, Andrew?
Well, like all our products, we do a lot of testing, drop testing from flights of stairs and all kinds of stuff. And also there's a kind of a membrane, a little layer of skin that's over the Braille dots. And one of the things that I showed APH when we first presented the technology was spilling a can of Coke over the top of the cells. And what it does, it then forms a puddle that you can then mop up and you can continue using your cells. So I'm not saying it's
not recommended,
liquid proof.
I would say.
Yeah, definitely not liquid proof for sure. But for those accidental spillages, that's what the membrane is there for, is to protect all of those cells.
What is it like in the office when you do drop testing on, an expensive device, the 14 grand like the Monarch?
Well, you've definitely got to be confident.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But a lot of our testing is done by a staircase that's in Canada, actually, and they're metal stairs. Okay. And so we basically just chuck them down the stairs, really. And so we've done a lot of testing with that in that respect. And of course, the material being used is quite robust as well. So, if you obviously smash it on the floor, will it break? Potentially, yes, it could. Like any laptop, things can break, right? But we certainly are careful of how we design and how we protect the Monarch, and it comes with a protective case as well.
Brilliant stuff. So you heard it here first. Please do not throw your Monarch down the stairs. Brilliant stuff. Something I found really interesting, actually, Andrew, is that this device has a brand new Braille-based file system. So do you want to tell me a little bit about the new file format that you're using, EBRF?
So when we look at the Monarch, it's not just introducing a product for the sake of things. We want to make sure that there is an ecosystem that is supported. And for the Monarch and other dynamic devices to really succeed, there is a new file format that needs to be created. And so I can confirm that there is a new file format called eBraille. Some of you may know what that file format is, but it's basically now a EPUB version of a BRF file. If I can kind of put it in a nutshell, those that are used to Braille documents, it's very hard or impossible to navigate. You're not able to navigate by chapters, links, etc. Whereas this new eBraille file will allow you to navigate by headings, different chapters, and not only that, it will integrate your tactile graphics. So when it comes across a tactile graphic, you can click on it and it opens up in the tactile view application on your Monarch, for example. So this new file standard called the eBraille is definitely going to evolve and will definitely assist in products like the Monarch and other devices.
And that's an open standard, is it? Or
it will be an open standard. There's no device yet that supports it. I say yet because Monarch will be supporting it. And in fact, we do have a beta version that's currently supporting it. But the idea is that it's open to everyone. And that's been developed and housed by the DAISY Consortium, in addition to the American Printing House also leading that file format.
Is the Monarch really focused more on, education and workplaces? Because we've had a conversation on this podcast and in our newsletters recently about what Braille's place is in the home now for someone who's at home who simply wants to read Braille. And in some regards, they're unfortunately kind of, with some of the newer technologies, they can be priced out a bit. So is the Monarch for them, or would someone in that category be looking to other products in, say, a Humanware range?
Okay, so when we look at the main segment market that we're trying to tackle on the Monarch, certainly a primary market is education. That's where the biggest barriers are being faced, in terms of the cost of producing graphics and textbooks. That it costs a lot of money. I mean, as an example, to create an algebra book, it's in the region of something like £20,000. Now, you don't see that from a user perspective, but that's what the funds from the governments, and that's how much it costs to create an actual Braille physical book with tactile graphics. So that's quite expensive. So our main focus is, of course, trying to break that barrier and making sure that a student has access to their materials on time. But when we go into the home place, there's a lot of use cases that Monarch has introduced. Things like just general reading from a library. Now, we have access to online libraries, Bookshare, for example, where you can download a book. Maybe you want to read to your child. That came out in field testing. There was a profession that loved just to read their books because they were reading to their children using the Monarch in multi-line, so using 10 lines of Braille versus a single line of Braille. So it's a bit like reading on a bit of paper. And I'm sure any Brailleist out there would prefer to read more on paper because of that multi-line experience. So it gives you the full story, the full picture. So yeah, there's a lot of use cases out there that the Monarch is able to cater for, and that's increasing. So for example, one other thing to mention is the screen reader. We're not compatible yet with screen reader, but we are in talks with the Apples of this world and NV Access for NVDA and Vespero for JAWS to get Monarch compatible with multi-line Braille and tactile experience using a screen reader. So that's interesting things coming ahead.
What kind of devices does the Monarch work with? You mentioned Apple there. Are you working like with some of those devices, like the iPhones, iPads of this world, as a, I suppose, more traditional Braille display?
The goal is to work as a Braille display, but using multi-line and tactile graphics. Because the technology that we have is equidistant pins, we're able to show both Braille and tactile graphics on the same array. Now, that's something that you cannot do on the Piazzo cells, the traditional cells that you have on a Braille display today. Now, the idea is that we would work with these screen readers manufacturers, and we'll be able to produce multi-line Braille, and then you can quickly then review graphics as well. But that's probably a few kind of years ahead for the tactile graphics with screen readers. But even the multi-line with screen readers is just being started. I mean, it's not really out there yet. So we are working with those manufacturers to make sure that's compatible.
What does, you mentioned kind of years ahead there, like what do you think the future of Braille in terms of digital Braille, what does that look like, do you think?
Well, I think definitely we're looking into the multi-line approach. I mean, I call this the next Braille milestone. And it's coincidence that this year, 2025, we are actually, not only we're celebrating the 200th year of Braille, but we're also celebrating 50 years of single line Braille. And so it's taken 50 years to get to this stage, what I like to call as the next Braille milestone, on introducing multi-line Braille, but not just that. With the Monarch, you've got the Holy Braille, which is both Braille and tactile graphics. So I do really think that going forward with Braille, it's exciting times, and I think that's a really good thing for Braille. There's many people out there that may think that Braille is dead. It's a dying technology. It's not being used because you've got all of these mainstream technologies that have voice and voice assistants and things like that. And they could never be wrong. It's so wrong. I mean, Braille is so important. And I think introducing products like the Monarch and other devices like Monarch, multi-line, just brings that level of excitement into Braille. And I think that's a really good thing going forward. So my kind of views going forward, I think in technology, definitely multi-line Braille. So maybe there's going to be 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, who knows? But definitely it's going to be some exciting things going forward when it comes to Braille technology.
You mentioned something to me there about a really interesting collaboration you're doing. You have a non-profit partner involved in the Monarch's development. The Monarch, as it stands right now, it's quite an expensive device. You can give me pricing if you don't mind in a minute, but I suppose, how are you working with the non-profit sector on this device, and what are the impacts of that going to be long term?
Sure. Yeah. So American Printing House is the non-profit organization, and they're equal investors. So they've obviously equally invested in this project as well as Humanware. And we worked together, and this was going back about 6 years ago, where they sent out a request for product. So they were really kind of looking into what technology is out there and who can be the best partners to work with to create such a product. Now, they previously did work with the graffiti, and of course, once they got that product out, I think they learned a lot from that. They felt that it wasn't the right product that they wanted to introduce, but they definitely learned a lot from that. And so when we showed the products that we had, along with the technology that was incorporated from DOT, they fell in love with that. And so we worked together ever since through the COVID times, which was a challenge in itself.
For sure.
So we have a very good relationship, American Printing House and Humanware. We've worked on a lot of projects in the past, such as the Mac Connect, which is a low vision product, and of course the Chameleon, which is an iteration of the Brailliant BI20X. So we definitely work well together. But from the non-profit side, of course, they're well funded, right? They're funded by their government, and there's a better funding organization there than it is definitely than the UK, that's for sure. So it works, and that's what's great about our partnership. It works really well. But it's not just the American Printing House that's involved in this project. I'd also like to mention that we do have the National Federation for the Blind, who's also involved as an advocate for this product. And like any Braille product that Humanware introduced, it's really important that we keep the focus on the users. So we use National Federation for the Blind. We use a lot of their members to do a lot of field testing, making sure that we are on the right path, making sure that we are fulfilling all the requirements needed and that it makes sense for a Braille user.
Outside of the Monarch, do you see the cost of Braille and multi-line Braille coming down in the future, in the near to medium term?
I think that's a difficult question because of the industry is so small in comparison of things, and of course when you look at innovation, right? Innovation does cost. We are in a small industry. Now we are as a profit company, of course, we need to make profit to then advance the technology, because Monarch wouldn't have existed. New technologies like the Braille displays, all those kind of things would not exist unless there's a profit company. Now, it is a small company, a small industry in that case. So will the price go down? I think certainly the technology will change, and that's what we're seeing. So your traditional piezo technology is very expensive technology, and that's why you're seeing these displays in the thousands. And Monarch is using technology that is not piezo, it's more magnetic, and it's really small and unique, but there are some trade-offs. So there are trade-offs. When we look at price, there will be some trade-offs. But going forward, I would love to think that the price will go down further. And I'm actually proud of where the price point is, because if you take yourself back 50, 40 years ago when you're looking at single line displays, and even today with an 80 cell Braille display, it's in the £8,000 to £10,000, right?
Yeah.
Where we are today with the Monarch, which the price point is just under 14,000, is actually a good price point. And you probably get a lot of people now thinking, wow, 14,000, that's expensive.
Yeah.
But I want to take you back to where things cost to produce Braille. Think of all the paper that you're producing, the materials, the embossing and binding and sending that out. That in itself, as I mentioned, cost over £20,000, and that's a lot of money. So when you look at the metrics, it's actually more better and more affordable to buy a Monarch than actually just producing paper Braille and tactile graphics the current way.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. I think, as you said, many people will still look at it as being quite expensive, but it is an interesting perspective that you have on it there. I suppose then, do you want to tell me a little bit about some of the other products in the Humanware range? You've obviously got the Braille Note there, the Braille Note Touch, still flying along. What's happening over there? What new things are coming to the different Braille devices?
Sure. Yeah. So, well, let's talk about the Braille displays. So that includes the Brilliant BR40X, the 20X, and of course the Mantis Q40, which is another partnership with American Printing House. Actually, coincidence. So we've just recently introduced version 2.4, which allowed for text to speech coming through onto the Mantis, and Mantis Q40 is an interesting project. It's a QWERTY keyboard with a 40-cell Braille display, and it does have intelligence built in. So it does have like standalone applications that allow you to take notes, connect to online libraries, to access books, and of course connecting it to your iPhones and computers of this world. So the version 2.4 introduced text to speech to Mantis, even though there's no speakers on board. The way that we do that is through Bluetooth headphones. So if you want to have text to speech with a Mantis Q40, if you pair up your headphones, you'll be able to get text to speech, which was a request required or wanted by a lot of our users out there. They really loved the Brilliant BR40X because of the audio and the text to speech, but they wanted a QWERTY keyboard as well. So with the Mantis Q40, that didn't have text to speech. So we tried to kind of trade off with that and allow people to have the text to speech through Bluetooth with a headphone. So a lot of work's being done with the Mantis and the Brilliance, and there's more to come sort of midway through the year with some exciting new things. I won't talk about those just yet. But yeah, really, really good products, the Braille displays. And then, of course, moving on to the Note Taker, the Braille Note Touch Plus, which we are expecting a new update very, very soon, which will include a recording application, improvements in keyword that will allow you to create math content within the word processor. So there's some work that's being done still within our Note Takers, and that hopefully will be launched in the next few months or so.
Brilliant stuff.
And apart from that, we do also have Annie. Annie is a new product that was introduced last year. It's a self-learning Braille tool. It's a small device that allows a young learner to learn Braille in a fun way and on their own as well, in a fun gamified way. And that's becoming a really popular product now. And I actually do love this product because, again, it comes to the point where it's making learning Braille more fun. Rather than your traditional Perkins keyboard, right? That's not so fun when it's quite heavy and you're hearing that noise. Having an Annie makes learning Braille a lot more fun and allows you to be a bit more engaged in the learning of Braille.
That's really cool. I remember a number of years ago, I think it could have been the American Printing House actually, had a device, I think it was called Braille Buzz, which was a kind of a Braille, I don't know if you'd call it like a toy, but a Braille kind of gamified, like fun learning toy for Braille and stuff like that, which was really cool. And it's good to see that there are stuff for new Braille learners and kids, which is really cool. And I think we think of Braille sometimes as being very serious, when we're dealing with it in education and work. But Braille is a great tool for fun as well, isn't it?
Definitely. And that's what Annie's fantastic on. It's from a company called Thinkable Labs, and they're based in India. And they first introduced this to us back in 2019, actually, but it wasn't quite ready at that point. But last year, when we really kind of took it on, it allows a user to learn from grade 1 all the way up to grade 2 by themselves. But not only that, the teachers, the parents, they can actually review their work. They can see their progress. So there is a kind of like a back end that allows the teachers to review what they're doing. If they want to, they can set them homework. So there's a full curriculum of learning contracted Braille using this device.
Very cool stuff. Very cool. And I suppose before I let you go, I've heard a rumor, Andrew, that Humanware is coming for me and they're launching a podcast soon.
We love rumors, but yes, that rumor is true. There is a podcast that is coming from Humanware. It's called See Things Differently, and that's starring Rachel, Peter, and David Woodbridge, who's down in Australia. Those three will be hosting the new podcast that will be introduced this coming Thursday. So it will be the podcast will be on every third Thursday of the month. So starting this coming Thursday.
Brilliant stuff. And people can find that in all the same podcast places as usual?
Yes, they can.
Brilliant stuff. So if you're on a platform and you're listening to Talking Technology, you will be able to find See Things Differently with Humanware on all of those platforms too. I believe you can actually subscribe already on most of those platforms, which is really cool. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us, and who knows, we will definitely be having you back on Talking Technology again some stage soon.
Great, thanks very much, David.
Thanks for listening to this Talking Technology podcast clip from VI Labs. For more just like this one, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. There you can also find full podcast episodes. They're also available on your podcast app of choice and on the My VI Hub.